My name is Lena Hayes, and until 3 weeks ago, I believed in playing by the rules. I showed up early, stayed late, swallowed my pride when credit went to someone else, and never once raised my voice in a meeting, even when I knew I was right. I thought loyalty was its own reward. I thought hard work mattered. I was wrong. The moment that changed everything happened on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. Rain tapped against the windows of Viridian Dynamics like impatient fingers, and the air in the executive wing smelled like stale coffee in quiet desperation. I'd just wrapped up the Q3 analytics report, the one I'd spent 6 sleepless nights perfecting, and walked into Marcus Thorne's office without knocking. Not because I was rude, but because he'd summoned me with a text that read, "My office. Now. Don't bring your notebook." Marcus sat behind his obsidian desk, fingers steepled, eyes sharp as broken glass. He didn't offer me a seat, didn't say hello, just slid a single sheet of paper across the polished surface and said, "Sign it." I picked it up. It was a non-disclosure agreement, but not the standard kind. This one was laced with clauses that would have made a lawyer flinch, a gag order on anything related to Project Chimera, a waiver of all future claims against Viridian, and a clause stating I'd voluntarily resign if asked, with no severance, no references, nothing. In exchange, I'd get silence. No lawsuit, no public smear, just quiet erasure. Why? I asked, voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Because you know too much," Marcus said, leaning forward. His cufflinks gleamed, platinum, custom engraved with a Viridian logo. "You saw the emails. You ran the numbers. You know what we're really selling to Omnicore." I did. Project Chimera wasn't just another data mining tool. It was a behavioral manipulation engine, designed to exploit psychological vulnerabilities in real time, sold to advertisers, political groups, even foreign governments. We disguised it as predictive engagement software, but the truth was uglier, and I'd stumbled onto it by accident while debugging a server log. One encrypted file led to another, and before I knew it, I was knee-deep in a digital swamp of ethical rot. "I didn't ask for this," I said. "No," Marcus agreed, "but you found it, and now you have a choice." He stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the Seattle skyline like he owned the clouds. "Accept these terms, or be destroyed." The words hung in the air like smoke. Not fired, not sued. Destroyed. He meant my reputation, my career, my future. Viridian had lawyers who could bury me in defamation suits before I finished packing my desk. They had connections in every major tech firm, every venture capital group. One whisper from Marcus, and I'd be radioactive. I looked down at the paper again. My signature would mean walking away from everything I'd built here. The late nights, the promotions, the respect I'd clawed out of a male-dominated field. It would mean letting them win. Letting them sell lies wrapped in algorithms to the highest bidder while calling it innovation. But saying no, that felt like stepping off a cliff. I handed the paper back. "I need time." "You have until 5, Marcus said, glancing at his watch. "After that, HR will escort you out. And trust me, Lena, you don't want that version of your exit to go public." I walked out without another word. Down the hall, past the glass-walled conference rooms where junior analysts glanced up from their screens, sensing something was off. I didn't look at them, didn't smile, just kept walking, heels clicking like a countdown. Back at my desk, I stared at my monitor. The screensaver, my sister's graduation photo, flickered to life. Maya, grinning in her cap and gown, eyes bright with the kind of hope I hadn't felt in years. She was studying computer ethics at Berkeley now, thanks in part to the tuition I'd quietly covered. She believed tech could be a force for good. I used to believe that too. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Asterisk, how's work? You sounded tired last night. Asterisk. I almost laughed. Tired didn't cover it. I was hollowed out. Used. But more than that, I was furious. Not the hot, screaming kind. The cold, quiet kind that settles in your bones and starts sharpening knives. At 4:45, I saved everything. Every email, every server log, every internal memo related to Chimera. Encrypted it. Split it into fragments. Sent copies to 3 separate secure cloud vaults under aliases I'd created years ago during a cybersecurity seminar, just in case. Back then, it felt paranoid. Now it felt like survival. At 4:58, I walked back to Marcus's office. He was on a call, but he waved me in like I was a stray dog he'd already decided to put down. I placed the unsigned NDA on his desk. "I choose option 3. He frowned. "There is no option 3. There is now." I turned and left. Didn't wait for his response. Didn't look back. By the time I reached the lobby, security was already waiting. 2 men in ill-fitting suits flanked the turnstiles, arms crossed. They didn't say anything, just watched me swipe my badge one last time, the red light flashing access denied before the system even registered my attempt. I handed over my laptop, my badge, my company-issued phone. They didn't search my personal bag. Didn't think I'd be stupid enough to take anything. But I hadn't needed to. Everything important was already gone, floating in the digital ether waiting. That night, I sat on my tiny balcony overlooking the Puget Sound, wrapped in an old hoodie, drinking cheap wine straight from the bottle. Rain had turned to mist, soft and gray. My bank account held enough for 3 months' rent if I skipped groceries. My LinkedIn profile was already getting concerned messages from former colleagues. Marcus had moved fast. But I wasn't scared. Not anymore. Because option 3 wasn't about running. It wasn't about hiding. It was about turning their weapon against them. Viridian thought data was power. They were right. But they forgot one thing. Data doesn't care about titles or corner offices or platinum cufflinks. Data only cares about truth. And I had enough truth to burn their whole empire to the ground. The next morning, I opened my laptop, the personal one, never connected to Viridian's network, and logged into a private forum I hadn't visited in years. It was a shadowy corner of the web where whistleblowers, hackers, and investigative journalists traded tips under layers of encryption. I joined it during the Snowden leaks, more out of curiosity than intent. Now, it felt like coming home. I drafted a message. Short, cryptic, just enough to bait the right people. Asterisk Project Chimera is live. Viridian Dynamics is selling behavioral override software to Omnicore. Proof available to verified parties only. No journalists. No cops. Yet asterisk. I hit send. Within an hour, replies started trickling in. Some were obvious traps, fake journalists, corporate spies posing as activists. But one stood out. The username was CipherWatch, and their PGP key matched a known leaker who'd exposed a major defense contractor 2 years back. Their message was simple. Send a sample. One file. Nothing traceable. I chose a server log from June, innocuous on the surface, but with metadata that pointed directly to Chimera's core architecture. I stripped it of anything that could ID me, wrapped it in triple-layer encryption, and sent it through a dead-drop relay. 2 days later, CipherWatch replied, "This is real, and it's worse than you think. Omnicore's already deployed a test version in 3 swing states. Voter suppression algorithm disguised as engagement optimization." My stomach dropped. I'd suspected political applications, but this was election interference. On an industrial scale. I typed back, "What do you need from me?" "Everything. But carefully. They'll be watching you. Assume your devices are compromised. Assume your apartment is bugged. Assume your coffee shop barista works for Viridian." I laughed out loud. Paranoia felt like a luxury now. But they were right. Marcus wouldn't stop at legal threats. Not with this much at stake. So I went dark. I bought a burner phone with cash. Switched to public libraries for internet access. Started taking different routes home, varying my schedule like I was in a spy movie. It felt ridiculous, until I saw the black SUV idling outside my building 2 nights in a row. Same plates. Same tinted windows. That's when I knew they weren't just watching. They were hunting. But here's the thing about hunters, they always underestimate the prey. I'd spent 5 years inside Viridian's machine. I knew its rhythms, its blind spots, its arrogance. Marcus thought I was just a data analyst, a cog who'd been promoted out of pity. He didn't know I'd built half the back-end systems myself. Didn't know I'd left backdoors in the code during routine updates, little digital breadcrumbs only I could follow. And he definitely didn't know about the failsafe I'd coded into Chimera's core during a late-night debug session last winter. A silent trigger, harmless on its own. But if activated, it would dump every transaction log, every client contract, every internal strategy docked directly to a decentralized blockchain ledger. Immutable. Public. Unstoppable. All it needed was one command. One keystroke. But I couldn't do it from here. Not with them watching. Not with my every move tracked. So I made a plan. I reached out to an old friend from grad school, Raphael, now a privacy advocate in Portland. He owed me a favor after I helped him debug a critical flaw in his nonprofit's donation platform. When I called him from a payphone near Pike Place Market, I didn't say much. Just, I need a place to disappear for a while. And a secure terminal. He didn't ask questions. Just said, be at Union Station in 3 hours. Wear a red scarf. Now, as I sit on a Greyhound bus heading south, scarf wrapped tight around my neck, I feel something I haven't in years, purpose. Not the kind that comes from climbing corporate ladders or impressing bosses. The kind that comes from knowing you're standing on the right side of history, even if it costs you everything. Marcus thought he gave me 2 choices, surrender or ruin. But he missed the third, the one where you stop playing their game entirely, where you rewrite the rules, where you use their own weapons to tear down the walls they built to keep people like me out. I don't know if I'll win. Viridian has billions, armies of lawyers, friends in high places, but I have something they don't, nothing left to lose. And sometimes, that's the most powerful position of all. The bus hums beneath me, wheels eating up miles. Outside, the Pacific Northwest blurs into rain and evergreen. Somewhere ahead, Raphael's waiting. Somewhere beyond that, the truth is waiting too. And I'm coming for it. The bus rolled into Portland just after midnight. Rain slicked the streets, turning streetlights into halos. Raphael was waiting under the awning of a closed bookstore, hood up, eyes scanning the road like he expected Viridian's goons to roll up in a black SUV any second. He didn't hug me, just nodded and handed me a paper bag with a change of clothes, a prepaid phone, and a keycard to a co-working space downtown that doubled as a digital safe house for activists. Your face is already on 2 internal Viridian watch lists, he said as we walked. They're calling you a disgruntled ex-employee with access to proprietary systems, trying to paint you as unstable. Good, I said. Let them think I'm unhinged. Unhinged people are unpredictable, and unpredictable people scare men like Marcus. For the next 10 days, I lived in the quiet hum of encrypted servers and blackout curtains. Raphael's network got me access to a clean terminal air-gapped from the internet, connected only through a Faraday-shielded tunnel when needed. I rebuilt my Chimera archive from memory and fragments, cross-referencing with what CipherWatch had confirmed. Every file, every line of code, every damning client email, I verified, timestamped, and prepared for release. But I didn't just want to leak it. Leaks get buried, debunked, forgotten. I wanted it to stick. So I reached out to someone I never thought I'd need. Naomi Chen, an investigative reporter who'd taken down a biotech giant 5 years ago using nothing but public records and sheer stubbornness. She'd been blacklisted by half the industry since, but she still had teeth. We met in a laundromat on the edge of Portland's industrial district. She arrived with a duffel bag full of signal jammers and a burner laptop wrapped in tinfoil. You're either very brave or very stupid, she said, folding her arms. Which is it? Both, I admitted, but mostly furious. I showed her a sample, just enough to prove Chimera wasn't theoretical. Her face went still, then hard. This isn't just unethical, she said quietly. It's criminal. And if Omnicore's using it to suppress voter turnout in swing states, that's not just corporate malfeasance. That's an attack on democracy. We made a pact right there between the whirring dryers. She'd craft the story. I'd provide the evidence. And we'd release it all at once, on a Sunday morning, when Viridian's PR team would be slow to respond and the news cycle was hungry for substance. The night before the drop, I sat alone in the safe house, staring at the failsafe command line. 1 keystroke. That's all it would take. But once I send it, there'd be no going back. Marcus would come for me with everything he had. Lawsuits, smear campaigns, maybe worse. I thought of Maya, of my mom, of every late night I'd spent believing that if I just worked harder, played fairer, I'd earn my place at the table. But the table was rigged, and I was done asking for a seat. I typed the command. Execute. Chimera _dump _public. The screen flickered. A progress bar crawled across. 10%. 35%. 72%. Then complete. Data published to blockchain ledger hashtag X9F3K2. Immutable. Verifiable. Public. I exhaled. It was done. By 6 a.m., the first headlines hit. Viridian Dynamics exposed. Secret AI tool manipulates voter behavior. Project Chimera leak reveals corporate espionage, election interference. Whistleblower drops bombshell data cache. Viridian stock plummets. Marcus didn't wait for the press to dig. By noon, Viridian issued a statement calling the leak a malicious fabrication by a terminated employee with a vendetta. But it was too late. Independent cybersecurity firms had already verified the data. Omnicore's CEO resigned within hours. The SEC launched an investigation. Congress demanded hearings. And then, Marcus called me. Not through a lawyer. Not through HR directly. On the burner phone. I don't know what you think you've accomplished, he said, voice tight. But you've ruined everything. No, I said. You did that the moment you decided people were just data points to be exploited. There was silence. Then, quietly, what do you want? Justice, I said. Not for me. For everyone your algorithms targeted. For every person whose choices were steered without their knowledge. For every democracy you treated like a marketplace. He hung up. 2 weeks later, I stood on the steps of the Russell Senate office building in Washington, D.C., flanked by Naomi and a coalition of digital rights advocates. I wasn't testifying under my real name yet, but my voice, filtered through a modulator, echoed in the hearing room as I explained how Chimera worked, how it preyed on fear, loneliness, and outrage to drive behavior. How Viridian had sold it like it was just another ad tool. Afterward, Maya called me. She'd seen the broadcast. "You did it," she whispered, crying. "You actually stood up." "I had to," I said. "For you. For everyone who still believes tech can be good." The fallout kept rolling. Viridian's board ousted Marcus. The company was broken up under antitrust scrutiny. New federal laws were drafted to regulate behavioral AI, laws with teeth, not just guidelines. I never went back to corporate tech. Instead, I started a nonprofit with Raphael and Naomi, the Algorithmic Accountability Project. We audit black box systems, expose hidden biases, and teach people how to fight back. It doesn't pay much, but I sleep at night. Sometimes, I still get nervous when a black car slows near my apartment. But I'm not afraid anymore. Because I learned something in those dark weeks after Marcus gave me his ultimatum: destruction isn't always the end. Sometimes, it's the only way to clear the ground for something better. And when someone asks me how I took down a billion-dollar empire with nothing but truth and a keyboard, I just smile and say, I didn't choose to be destroyed. I chose to rebuild. The morning sun spilled through the windows of our new office, a modest space above a bookstore in Portland, with mismatched chairs, a coffee machine that hissed like an old friend, and walls covered in whiteboards scribbled with code, policy drafts, and sticky notes that read things like ethics first. Always. It had been a year since I typed that command, since I chose option 3. Viridian Dynamics no longer existed. Not as it once was. Its assets were sold off, its leadership disbanded, and its name became a cautionary tale in business schools and congressional hearings alike. Marcus Thorne quietly disappeared from the public eye. Rumor had it he was consulting for a private equity firm in Dubai, but no one really cared anymore. His power had evaporated the moment the truth went public. As for me, I wasn't hiding anymore. My name was out there, Lena Hayes, whistleblower, founder of the Algorithmic Accountability Project. At first, I braced for lawsuits, for backlash, for the smear campaign I knew Viridian would try to launch. But it never came. The evidence was too solid, the public outrage too loud, the political will too strong. Instead of silencing me, they'd made me impossible to ignore. And then came the best part, the people. Students reached out. Former Viridian engineers confessed they'd known something was wrong but were too scared to speak up. A high school in Ohio invited me to talk about digital ethics. Maya graduated with honors and now interns with our team, building open-source tools to detect manipulative design patterns in apps. Even my mom stopped worrying. "You look lighter," she told me over Sunday pancakes last month. "Like you've finally put down a weight you've been carrying your whole life." She was right. One afternoon, as I was reviewing a draft of our new Ethical AI Certification Program, Raphael leaned in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You got a call from the White House," he said, grinning. I rolled my eyes. Again. They're serious this time. They want you to co-lead the Federal Task Force on Algorithmic Transparency. I took the coffee, warm and bitter. "Tell them I'll do it, but only if we include community advocates, not just tech execs and lawyers." "Already told them that," he said. "They said yes." I smiled. Later that week, I stood on a small stage at a Tech for Good conference in San Francisco. No modulator this time. No alias. Just me, in a simple navy blazer, speaking into a mic under bright lights. "I used to think playing by the rules was the right thing to do," I told the crowd. "But sometimes, the rules are written to protect the powerful, not the truth. So when someone tells you, accept these terms or be destroyed, remember, there's always a third option." The room erupted in applause. Not because I was a hero, I wasn't, but because I'd proven that one person, armed with nothing but integrity and a refusal to look away, could change the course of something much bigger than themselves. That night, I walked along the Embarcadero, the Bay Bridge glittering in the distance. My phone buzzed, a text from Maya. "Proud of you, big sis. Dinner tomorrow. My treat." I typed back, "Only if you let me pick the place." As I headed back to my hotel, I passed a group of young women laughing outside a cafe, laptops open, coding under string lights. One of them wore a pin that read, "Question the algorithm." I didn't say anything. Just smiled to myself and kept walking, lighter, freer, finally home in my own skin. Because in the end, I didn't just survive. I built something worth living for. And that's the happiest ending of all.